Meltdown Abroad is the only podcast run by an educational psychologist and an occupational therapist designed specifically for expat parents navigating life abroad while managing the emotional ups and downs that come with parenting far from home.
We are two professionals who live the chaos we coach other people through. I'm Chanel, the pediatric occupational therapist, and Tara is our educational psychologist. We will share real stories full of humor and authentic experiences, as well as expert insights for expat families navigating overwhelm, burnout, and a lot of big emotions.
Hey, Chanel.
Hey, Tara. Welcome to another episode of Meltdown Abroad.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. What was your meltdown this week?
This week I had an ID meltdown.
Okay.
And it's funny because I've been here a while, so these things are maybe slightly less challenging now than they would have been.
Yeah.
But we had to go to essentially when our child is not at one particular school, you have to go to the local school and essentially register them anyway, even if they go to like an international school or a different school than the local German one.
Yeah.
You still go and you register them there just in case they were to need that spot, and you let them know where they are instead. And in doing that, we need to bring all our IDs. And somehow in that process, my ID went missing. So now we have to go sort of report that it's been missing and go through all the sort of paperwork. And it's funny because even almost 4 years in,
Yeah.
those are still actually the things that I find anxiety provoking. However, this time, instead of just trying to do everything myself and being stressed about it, I'm bringing in my village, which I have now, and bringing in people who speak German and can help me navigate some of the nuanced language that I need to actually get a new ID.
Nice. That's good.
Did you have a meltdown this week?
I don't know if I had a meltdown. Actually, I didn't have a meltdown, but I saved myself from having a meltdown.
Oh, very good.
For the
How?
past 2 weeks, I've been trying to go to the bank.
Okay.
Just to verify myself for a joint bank account. And this gal, like, she speaks English, so she knows me now because this is my third account apparently I'm setting up in the past month. And so she wasn't available, and I had planned for this. So I remembered exactly what I needed to bring.
Very good.
The first time from the last time. And I just packed my little envelope with every single thing they could possibly ask me for, like every type of ID verification, my tax ID, all of the things that were needed. And of course, I had someone who didn't speak any English. And so I showed her my email to show her why I came in, and she's like, I can assist you. And I just laid everything out, and it was the smoothest process ever.
Well done. It's very good.
I needed that smoothness.
Yeah. That's so good, though. But you came really prepared. You knew, because you've had a couple of these experiences before, you knew what to bring and how to help
avoid
make it work.
Today. Yeah.
Well done. Excellent. Well, we have an interesting topic to talk about today, and of reassessing the dynamics in our partnerships when we move abroad, because there are things that, often we have these roles, like there are certain things that one of us handles maybe a little bit more than the other one, whether that's if you're a parent, if it's a doctor's appointment for the kids, or shopping for them, or cooking, or managing the schools, or, there might be certain things that one person does more than the other one. And then also the same with just the house, the finances, the management,
the responsibilities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And those, what one person does or doesn't do when you're both kind of on equal ground in a home country where you're equally familiar, that those roles might change a little bit.
Yeah. So you're talking about like, just how do we prepare for the possibility of that switch, right? That recalibration of roles when you get to a new unfamiliar environment, especially if both of you are in a new place. And just having those conversations beforehand, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is people take on burdens that they internalize things that might not necessarily be there. And if both partners are internalizing that this is what their responsibility is going to be, you're already moving with this stressor, this thing that might not be needed. And so trying to dissect and have those conversations before you move about just the role reversals and what it will naturally look like and what your fears are, right? What you feel your strengths are going to be when you move. For example, if one partner is going to be working and the other's not, if it's a country with a new language, maybe one person's more focused on learning the language or getting acquainted with people that might learn the language, finding support in that way. But yeah, just really highlighting what your fears are going to be for moving, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and what you think you should be able to combine together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great start. And even having a conversation in advance that's saying, this might be how we think we can set it up based on all of those things. And also we might get there and need to change things around a little bit, and sort of helping everyone to be open to that, because sometimes we get sort of stuck in our roles a little bit and how we've done something, particularly if you've been in a partnership for a long time, kind of in a groove, you've done things in a certain way, people are used to that, everyone sort of in the home is used to that, and it can really need to shift, and we want to make sure that everyone feels okay to have some of those conversations before and during.
For us, we can kind of talk about what our experience is like, because you've come in as two new partners in a new country, whereas I've come in as the new partner to the country. Or the partner that's new to the country.
Exactly.
Right? So just kind of diving into what your experience might have been like with both of you coming in as this language is new for me, this place is new for me. I know coming here, I had it a little bit easier because my apartment was already here.
It's great.
My
Very
partner
helpful.
did the search and found the apartment and was like, okay, time for you to come.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Whereas for you, you had to go through the process of even finding an apartment and who took on the responsibility for that, right? Who took on the responsibility or majority of the responsibility for the house finding, moving here, and then maybe that wasn't an environment that you wanted to be in. Things like that, those nuances. And then like, are we placing blame or are we doing this together?
Yeah, well, and I think, that comment that you just made about blame, I think is important, because if the more we have conversations ahead of time that talk about the things that could pop up, or the things that might be harder for us, or the fears, you were talking about that before, the things that we're worried about, if we talk about those ahead of time, then when they do come up, because some of them will, then they're easier to tackle when they do. And, I'm curious for you, your partner's here, right? So were there certain conversations that you made sure to have before coming that were really helpful? Or ones you didn't have that you really wish you had? Because I have those.
I definitely have the ones that I didn't have. So I know one of the things when the plan was for me to move here, I was already going to be moving with a job, with my business online and just some of the freelance work that I was already doing. I had already planned for the time zone shift and how to continue that for a period of time before assimilating into the German job system. So, and the conversation that we didn't have was what he thought I was coming into. And so for him, he kind of expected to take on the financial role of things, and then I would just be more of like nurturing at home, staying at home, assimilating. And so we clashed a little bit there, because I was like, I don't have time for this.
When am I going to do that?
I was like, when are you going to make yourself available so that we can, one, create a home together? Because the nice thing was that though he already lived somewhere, we wanted to move in together to our own place. And it was a little bit of kind of just figuring out what the role dynamics were going to be and not having conversations about that beforehand. One thing that I know did help was when I did move here, the bills. We had conversations about the bills, and because what I was going to be earning was it was going to change a little bit, because the capacity of working different time zones were going to change. So we had that conversation slightly, but the overarching, like the financial roles and responsibilities, who's going to face that versus who's going to take care of the home, we didn't have. And we had two different ideas about that.
And I think it's funny, because we actually do have a lot of things that are sort of set in our minds, even though maybe we're not even conscious about that. And a lot of those conversations we don't have because they feel smaller. Like we might have conversations about the work, who's working or what the work looks like, or maybe the finances a bit. But
Mhm.
the other pieces feel they just don't happen. That we don't have those conversations all the time about who's managing what. Sometimes even in your home country, you're not actually talking about those things.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah.
And the more we do, the better it goes, really,
Yeah.
because we can be upset with other people or frustrated about things that the other person doesn't even know you might care about or might wish to be a little bit different. And
Yeah.
it
I
helps a lot to talk about it.
I think what was really interesting and what I noticed is because Berlin wasn't new to me, like I'd
Mhm.
always visited over the years. And when I did visit, it was more about like us connecting and us being together because it was
Yeah.
short bursts of time with us being in the same city. But when I moved here, he made such an effort to include me in his social world.
That's really
And
nice.
that was something that was different for me because I've lived in 12 different cities. But
Yeah.
like I've lived in a lot of cities, and a lot of those cities I lived in by myself. And so I always prioritized whether I wanted to, well, my priority on friendships was based on whether I thought it would be long term or short term
Mhm.
living.
Yeah.
And so I often had to navigate a space by myself and integrate by myself without that community or that village. Whereas coming here, I almost had that
It's really nice.
automatically,
Yeah.
and he made a concerted effort to make sure that he was involved in me and a lot more things with his friends,
Yeah.
whether and we didn't have those conversations, but again, I don't know if he felt like he was obligated to do that because I was coming into his
Mm.
city or not, but those are things that we want to important conversations
Yeah.
that we want to have, because what can happen is, especially in my situation, is a partner can feel burdened
Mhm.
by what they need to do, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's that invisible. If you're not talking about it, he's like, I have to
They
make
don't
sure I'm
know.
taking
Yeah.
care of her financially. I have to make sure that she's getting like her social engagements, her
Mhm.
wants and her needs met. Like I have to do all of this stuff, and like meanwhile I'm just like coasting and I'm happy it's a
And you're
new
fine. Yeah.
city
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm relaxed, and he's
Yeah.
like burning out
Yeah.
trying to take care of me.
That's it, and it can be uneven in any direction, and sometimes one person is working and the other one isn't, and one has
Hmm.
like a structured company where there's all these people,
Yeah.
and so then that social piece might also really not be there, or one person has much more of it. Or if both are working, then it's really good conversations to have around, okay, who's finding doctors in the new place?
Yes.
Because there's some nuances in finding doctors that also speak some of your native language too, and it's entirely
Hmm.
possible in big cities to do this. And it matters quite a lot with medical care that
Yeah.
you have some ability to feel like you're really understanding, and learning the language obviously takes time. So
Hmm.
before you're fluent in the language of the country, having doctors that you can really speak with and understand. you know are you doing the search for schools together? Is
Hmm.
one person leading that? The just all of these dynamics around the house. Who's cooking? Are you sharing that, or is that more for one person or the other? And it's when both people are working, we really have to have those conversations. And then, but even
Hmm.
if one person is working and the other one isn't, there can be this sense that, okay, well, the person who's not working is doing everything else, but that may not work in the country that you're in. It may
Hmm.
not work because the language capacity doesn't even allow for it, or we might need a bit more support to be
Hmm.
able to do some of those things. For instance, if you're not familiar with the language, navigating the contracts or having some conversations with schools or doctors or those things, you
Hmm.
might need a little bit of support for those things.
Yeah.
And we could feel a little bit more burned out by some of those activities. And it's not that there's anything wrong with any of it, really. It's just that we might need a little bit more support than we have.
Yeah, I think what's important to focus on as well is the dynamic of your relationships and those roles and responsibilities, because as soon as those switch, how does that affect your dynamic,
Right.
right? Is the other person able to adapt to this new role reversal? Like
Right.
you said, who's going to manage the doctors and the kids' appointments and this kids' schooling? Who's going to manage the finances? Who's going to be working? Are we both working? Who's going to manage the social
Yeah.
setting? Who's going to manage? I know here moving to Germany, there's so many insurances that you have to get. I,
Mhm.
I I wouldn't have known that. So if
Yeah.
something happens and I wasn't aware of this, like who's job and responsibility is it to figure out how to function in this new city?
Yeah.
And so, with all these new demands and no community behind you, you're kind of relying heavily on each other, and
Yeah.
this is where it starts to impact the relationship itself.
Okay, that you just said is I think is really important too, because when you first move to a new place, I
Hmm.
mean, your situation is slightly different because there was a group of friends already there,
Yeah.
which helps with this, though they weren't necessarily your close friends,
Yeah.
right? So there's still some learning there and
Yeah.
some less familiarity for you than for him. But if you don't have a social circle yet, which you
Hmm.
will, but if you don't have a social circle yet, then you rely really intensely on one another to be a lot more for one another than you would in your home country.
Exactly.
And extra grace for everybody is really important because you can't be 12 things for another person. And
Especially
that,
when kids are involved.
right. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with them. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the partnership either. It's just that there's more pressure on it
Hmm.
in the moment that you're in. And that pressure changes.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, so is it that I really need to build out my friend group so that I have that outlet for myself? Or maybe they do, depending on what the work dynamic looks like, or if whatever the pathway was in the new country and how much experience that other person has in that country, maybe there's an easier pathway for them to build those relationships and making sure that the other person has
Yeah.
it too, just like your partner did.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too is that with me moving to my partner's country is that he already had his routines and
Yeah.
he already had his way of doing things, and it's almost as if he was trying to make my environment a lot easier so that I can easily develop my own routines and my own way of navigating the city. And one of the areas where we did manage to clash as well is when my routines, or if I'm not picking up my routines as quickly or as easily, or maybe not prioritizing that, and I'm just kind of stuck in my work routines and focusing my attention outside the country
Yeah.
where I was
Yeah.
still working,
Yeah.
but not assimilating, not really trying to learn the language as quickly because I had him.
Yeah.
I didn't have to face paperwork
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he speaks the language. So it's like I am kind of it becomes a thing of him feeling a sense of guilt that I don't have a normalcy or my own way of things, but it's also what my normal is or what
Yeah.
I consider my routines look a lot differently. They don't have to be in the outside world.
Right.
Right. I was still for a majority of the year stuck with having my calls with my friends back home and like still visiting for work purposes quite often and not really settling here.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I've made all this sacrifice for you to be able to integrate quickly, but you're not really doing it at the
You're
pace
not
that I
doing
thought you
it.
would.
Well, and we can talk about that more too, because we have some unique perspectives here. Just with you came here knowing you would stay,
Yeah.
and I came here knowing it would be temporary.
Yeah. So what does that
So
look like?
right, so they both look different,
Yeah.
and but from the standpoint of the partnerships, there's also the when we're looking at it from a parenting perspective, there are so many things, even if you're not a parent, that you're navigating in the new environment. But then when you're also a parent and you're adding on all of those things that your kids are going to need at the same time, having these regular conversations changes how successful you feel when you start doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like just kind of going back to whether you're coming to stay temporary or if you're having the sense of permanence here in that new city, you want to be more intentional about really setting that groundwork.
Yeah.
Being able to have a safe word or a safe space where something doesn't feel right, and so you go and you attack it right then and there instead of not communicating with each other and kind of keeping it to yourselves, because again, like you're each other's anchor for the first few months, years, hopefully not years, but you're going to be each other's anchors. And so you need to be able to trust that person fully and to be as open and honest with them. And if that's not going to be there, the breakdown will happen.
Right.
Right. You had a really good phrase about it not being the relationship.
Yeah, well, it's not just because often the relationship is great, and it's just that we need to recalibrate based on the new environment. and it's not, you know, we aren't always used to having to shift all of the ways in which we do things as a couple.
Mhm.
And we might not also be as used to having regular conversations about the division.
Mhm.
Like, so all these tasks, we don't always talk about those and who's doing what. And I mean, there's some things that we assume,
Yeah.
like my husband manages the trash. I don't really do that unless he's away. But some of these things that, cooking and doctors and school events and finding the school and all of those things, if I were to do it again,
Mhm.
I would have maybe made a list of questions and made sure that we had some of these conversations a little bit
Yeah.
more concretely. Like, now we've been able to have them as we go along and
Yeah.
adjust as we go along. However, we could have had a few more than we had, and it would have been very helpful for both of us. And so now we've done it as we go along. That's
Yeah.
okay. But I would certainly do that. If
Yeah.
anyone is about to make a move with their partner, looking at these things, looking at what might be hard to talk about,
Yeah.
and what are some things they anticipate being harder than others, or that they might want more support with.
Yeah. And just kind of going back to your partner being your anchor and possibly your sole anchor, it's you guys can have these conversations about the division of roles and who's going to be responsible for what. But just like how at home you'd be burnt out, having that division of role here means you can also be burnt out as
Yeah,
well. And so what happens when you're burnt out and you're overwhelmed, and does your partner have the capacity to pick up some of that load, or
yeah,
to be there for you,
yeah,
right? Or you don't have your village, you don't have your
yeah,
friends, you don't have that support system that you do at home. So now they're also having this emotional piece and having to deal with that
yeah.
as well, not just the physical
Right.
responsibilities.
Right. And
Yeah.
if you feel like you know already that you're someone that just you really need your friends for some of those things,
Yeah.
then I mean, I have one example where I have one friend of mine. I mean, we've set up a phone call literally every week that I've been
Yeah.
here, and it has totally changed how I was able to emotionally navigate in the early days. Honestly, even now,
Yeah.
and so if you're like, this time with my friends is so important to me, and I'm really nervous about not having it, then if there's a way of setting something up, even if it's, the first Sunday of every month or
Yeah.
whatever, that you just have like a standing phone call, um, it can really help with that a little bit when you feel like all of it is going on to your partner, and all of the things that you need are done. The other person's trying to catch them and do those things, and
Exactly.
usually everyone's really trying,
Yeah.
you know, um, and also we can't be all those things at the
We
same
have to
time.
be gracious. We have to,
Yeah,
be patient with ourselves, be patient with our partners, be patient with the kids because they're also
yeah,
navigating this new environment. And we have the insight to be able to set things up and to position ourselves, whereas the kids don't.
yeah,
They're relying on you, the parents, to be able to help them, to anchor them, and propel them in the directions that they need to go in. So
you know as you say that, it just makes me think of how, the more stable the partnership is, the more we're able to have these conversations, the more it's okay when it doesn't work
mhm.
ideally, and we can talk our way through it and find out what does.
Yeah.
That stability translates to them, and they
Mhm.
feel that calmness when
Mhm.
we're able to go through and also have things that, okay, this doesn't quite work now that we're here, and these things look at a different way. How can we do it differently? And it's also really useful for our kids to hear some of those conversations,
Yeah.
particularly when they're productive, of like, okay, how can we do this in a different way so it works better for everyone? For kids, I mean, certainly they feel the emotional difference, but it's also really a useful thing for them to hear other people problem solving through newness and coming up
Yeah.
with ways of making it work.
Just like we had spoken about in the sensory overload
Mhm.
episode,
Yeah,
about just kind of including them in the conversation about how I'm feeling, what I'm feeling, modeling those
yeah,
strategies to them. I think it's important to just kind of be open with them where it's appropriate to talk about when things aren't working out, and
yeah,
to be able to model that with situations that they might have,
yeah,
and talk about when their situations didn't work out versus
Yeah.
like I had this moment too. Mommy went to the bank and I didn't have the right IDs.
Yeah, there it
I
is.
didn't
Yeah.
know. Like we all make
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes they'll be able to then get involved. Like I could help clean the kitchen and I could help
Exactly.
do, and those things in terms of your family community, which I'll just say is one of massive positives to this kind of leap when you make
Hmm.
it as a family. You get really close,
Hmm.
and you're really working as a little unit in this new space, and you have to at first, and then you just sort of keep doing it,
Yeah.
even when you don't have to anymore. And kids feeling like they're really contributing to
100%.
to everything working at home, and them feeling pride in the way that they participate in what goes on at home is really helpful for them too.
Yeah. So, what are the conversations that we need to be having? We need to talk about our roles and our responsibilities.
Yeah, our roles, and how, and making sure that we're checking in with each other so that we create a pathway to have those conversations when we really need to have
Those
them.
check-ins are important.
Yeah, so even saying like let's just check in every 6 weeks or so and see how everybody's doing.
Yeah.
I think I would have loved to consciously set that up in advance.
So did
That would have
I.
been really helpful. Maybe writing down a list of even just your fears,
Yeah.
some of the things that you're worried about, in
What do you
terms
think
of
your strengths are going to be?
exactly what do you think your strengths will be? What would you really love to take on because it's something you really like to do?
Hmm.
Having those out there in advance, I think,
Hmm.
can really be helpful. And if you've already moved, it's a really useful. I do kind of audits of everything all the time, and it's like, how are things going? What do we love and we want to keep doing? More of what feels like it's okay, but maybe we could tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
What's definitely not working, so that we can, without a lot of judgment and without it blame, just looking at the things that are working, looking at the things that aren't, and really productively coming up with what might work a little
Yeah.
better.
So, when you feel like your relationship is really feeling impacted by the move and things don't feel as smooth as they did when you were back home, we have to remember that it's not a problem with the relationship, that
Yeah.
it's just
It's just the environment.
it's the environment, and us just needing to rearrange that,
Yeah.
rearrange what we're doing to match the environment that we're in.
Exactly. And don't panic that like your relationship isn't okay.
Yeah.
It will be. And it's more about how do we recalibrate in the new environment we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Well, I definitely think that this will hit with a lot of people. So I do want to
Yeah.
hear in the comments below how you've managed to navigate, or just things that have come up that you never thought would have came up in your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Questions that you've asked each other that have really
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Definitely.
we'll see you again soon for
Yeah.
another
Thanks.
episode.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.